In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this worm gear from VEX components on Fusion. So let's get started. First thing I need to do is I need to fix a couple of parts here. So I'm going to bring in, actually I'm just going to double click. I'm going to open up this 36 tooth gear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sketch right on this top face. And all I'm going to do is create a point right in the center there that I'm going to be able to use later. I'm going to finish my sketch. And I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to close this down. And next I'm going to do is I'll close this down as well. I'm going to open up my shaft bushing. I'm going to do the same thing on my shaft bushing. I'm going to rotate it around so I can see the top. I'm going to put a new sketch right in this top. And I'm going to make a point right in the center there, right at the origin. Finish sketch. Hit save. I'm good to go. So the next thing is I want to bring in my base that everything's going to be sitting on. So it's my 4x4 plate. So I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to rotate this down a little bit, 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it off the origin. That's where it's brought in. So I'm going to just grab this and slide it off a little bit. I don't want all my points coming in right on top of it, or all my parts coming in on top of it, excuse me. So I have my little piece right here. I'm going to pan down. I'm going to bring in my little side piece. And you can see it's not on my base. I'm going to rotate this around 90 degrees. There we go. We're going to hit OK. Now, I'm going to look underneath this piece. I'm going to zoom in so you can see where I'm grabbing. I'm going to make a joint. I'm going to make sure that it's a rigid joint. And I'm going to grab this shaft right here so I can grab the center of that shaft. I'm going to hit my little home view. And then I'm going to grab this little circle right there and plop my piece in. I'm going to bring a second piece in. Same one. Bring it in. I'm going to rotate this up because I just want it orientated in the right spot to start with so I know where I'm going. And I'm going to spin this one around 180 degrees. There we go. I'm going to look underneath again. Joint. Move that out of the way. Grab that little shaft right there. Go to my home view. And plop that right in. And we're looking good. We'll hit OK. Next, I'm going to bring in a series of 4 little connector pegs. They're all going to be the same. So I'm going to bring one in. And I'm going to leave it in this position. It doesn't really matter because I'm going to be flipping it. Next, I'm going to go to my joints. I'm going to grab that little inside edge. I'm going to put it right against that inside circle. And this one is on the inside, so I do have to flip this one so it's on the outside. We'll hit OK. I'm going to bring another peg in. Again, we'll zoom in. I'm going to get this inside edge. I'm going to zoom into this little circle right here. Put that in there. Again, I will have to flip it to put it on the outside. Move it around. I'm going to grab another peg, bring it in. Again, I'm going to grab that little inside edge. I'm going to spin my whole piece around. Move my little window out of the way. And I'm going to put it right on that inside edge there. And that one goes in just fine. I'm going to bring in one more piece. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to grab that inside edge. I'm going to put it on that little circle right there. This one I probably will have to flip. Make sure it's coming in outside. And we're looking pretty good so far. The next is I'm going to bring in that little shaft bushing. We're going to bring that in. I am actually going to spin this up in the right direction. There we go. I'm going to look underneath. And actually, then this one I'm not going to look underneath. I'm going to grab this little edge right here. This time I'm going to do a revolute joint. And I'm going to put a revolute joint right here. I want this piece to be spinning. I'm going to zoom out. And where do I want that little piece to go? Well, I have to flip the whole piece over. And where I'm going to go is not the first row, but the second row right in the middle right there. And we're going to select OK. Go to my home view. It's sitting in the good position. The next, I'm going to bring in my gear, my 36 tooth gear. Slide that in. I'm going to rotate that down a little bit. And we'll hit OK. This is where those 2 points are going to come in handy. I'm going to go joint. This one I'm going to go rigid because I'm going to already have it spinning on that other piece. So I'm going to go rigid. And I'm going to grab that point. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to grab that point on the piece. I'm going to have to probably flip this. There we go. Sitting on top. We're looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn this piece off, that gear. Just make it invisible. Because I'm going to have to bring in a shaft, and I need to move this shaft around a little bit. So I'm going to bring in a 2-inch shaft. And what I'm going to do is I'll flip this up in the right direction. We'll flip it up 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do now, actually I probably should have left it. I'm going to spin it around now. Joint. I want to stay in my rigid joint. Yep. I'm going to grab the center of that piece. Go to my home view. I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to grab that center piece right there. Now, this has to go on the inside. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to look at the right side view, and I'm going to drop this down 0.125. And I can just type that right in there, 0.125, negative 0.125, sorry. Just stick it down inside there, right? Okay. Go back to my home view. I'm going to turn my gear back on. I got a couple little side pieces to put in. So I'm going to put those side pieces in. So I'm going to bring those in, little 2x2 side pieces. And I'm going to leave that just as it is. I'm going to rotate this around because I want to see the other side of it. I'm going to zoom in. I want this to be rigid, and I believe I'm still in rigid. Yes, I am. I'm going to grab that little circle right there. Go to my home view. I'm going to put that right on that inside ring right there. And then it looks like it's off just a little bit. Probably didn't grab the inside. We're going to cancel that. We'll redo that one. Let's try that one more time. So I'm going to spin this around. Rigid joint. That center circle, home view. And let me make sure I grab that right ring. There I go. I didn't grab the center. We put in there. There we go. And we locked in. We're going to do that one more time. I'm going to bring my 2x2 beam. This time, I don't have to spin this piece around, so I'm going to go rigid joint. I'm going to grab that center piece right there. I will have to spin the whole thing around. And I want that to go, and I'm zooming in so you can see right against that, but I want to make sure I get that center point down there. There we go. Don't get that top edge. All right, let's see how we're doing so far. Pretty good. We got 2 more pieces to put in. I'm going to go find my 4-inch shaft and bring that in. We'll hit OK. I'm going to zoom in there. This I want to be a revolute. I want this to spin. So we're going to change that to a revolute. I'm going to grab the center point and the end right there. And I'll come and look on this little side piece and grab that center point. Now I know this is not going to be centered, so I'm going to go to my right side view. We'll pan over. And I'm going to slide this piece over. And how far am I going to slide it over? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. It's going to be 0.75. There we go. We have 1 more piece to go. I'm going to close up this browser a little bit. And that's going to be my worm gear. So I'm going to bring my worm gear in. And that's in a really good position, so I'm going to leave it as is. We'll zoom in. I'm going to go back to my joints. Now I want this to be a rigid joint because I already made the shaft a revolute. So I'm going to go rigid. I'm going to click that center point. So I'm grabbing that ring, that center point. Zooming out, I'm going to grab the end of this shaft. Now I'm going to look at my right side view a little bit. We'll zoom out so you can see what I'm doing. And all I'm going to do is kind of slide this over close to the center. And we'll hit OK. So now we're all assembled. The last thing I want to do is I want to look at my top view here. And I want to look at my gears. And I want to kind of line them up a little bit so it looks somewhat good. So we're looking pretty good so far. The last thing we have to do is do a little bit of animation. So I'm going to open up my joints folder right here. And I'm going to go back to assemble. I'm going to slide down to motion link. And I'll capture this position. I need to select 2 that I want to do. So I'm going to select that revolute and that revolute. And as you can see, I got them going. I actually come back in here if I need to, and I can change maybe the speed of one of them. We'll stop it and play. That one's go a little fast, so we'll swap these around. We'll make this 360, and we'll make that one 180. There we go. So we can kind of get our animation in there. And that's how you create the worm gear.